30 years ago, we never would have imagined being here talking about this. We went from childhood games to energetic alignment. By doing the work, we created better versions of ourselves. Join us, two women sharing their intimate journal entries on their path to consciousness. Get in here, get in here, get in here. Woo child, entanglement about to stir some up. This is the stuff that can be the hardest and most heartbreaking part of the process. It's taking a good hard look at all the things, people, places, ideas, mindsets that are keeping you exactly where you are. And if there is any place in your life you feel stuck, then I can almost guarantee there's something that you need to let go of. For me, it was a marriage, friendships, mindsets, and regular weed consumption. It took me years to let some of these things go. It took strategic planning to let others go, and some took good old-fashioned discipline. If life were played out on a tightrope, entanglement are the knots along the rope that make passing difficult or even impossible. Inventory your life. Look for your knots. Everyone's are different, but I'm willing to bet everyone knows exactly where their knots are. It's just a matter of when you're ready to move beyond them. Speaking personally, every knot released in my rope opened up bigger and better opportunities in my life, and the tightrope became thicker, more stable, and reliable. It ain't easy work, but I promise you it's worth it.
I cast a spell on myself when I was 15 years old without even knowing it. I hung a quote on my bedroom wall that read, "Build a bridge and get over it." But it wasn't until I was 37 years old that God revealed to me my true meaning of my witchcraft. It meant that people were going to come into my life who weren't going to stay, and I had to learn to build that bridge and stand on my decision to let them go. I remember going through breakups so easily and being told that I had a cold heart. And then Sam Smith sang the song that described me to a T. I'm way too good at goodbyes. The spell was working. I was going to get over anything, person, or place that didn't serve me. I wished them well in their journey through life, but they would no longer be walking alongside mine. And my motto became, everybody can't go. And I say that respectfully. I was releasing myself and others from any prior commitments made. Moving on doesn't mean you're cold-hearted. It just means get quiet and prepare for your next season. Get in here, get in here, get in here. Welcome, you guys, to the 6th episode of Get In Here, where we talk about entanglement today. And like Zakkiya said, we're about to start some shit up.
Woo, child. That's the way I started my journal entry because I already knew. In fact, I know that this episode is going to be special because it showed up in my dreams last night.
Oh, wow.
Two of the people that I have untangled from showed up in my dream, which let me know that I am on the right path. Maybe there is still some guilt associated with moving on from them, but I know for a fact I'm not here where I am right now had I not released those knots in my tightrope.
Yes, it's about releasing too. I mean, we get into entanglements. First of all, the word entanglement, right? Jada Pinkett put this word on the map for us. She made this word buzz, people, and then we just got all caught up in our feelings. But the true meaning of entanglement is, those threads within our life that are just tangled, and we have the ability to untie them and unbind them. And then also release others from the entanglement that we place on them. So I think that's going to be key for you guys to understand today. This is about releasing entanglements because they are hard and they're binding a lot of us into, guilt and shame and other just hard negative words that we don't understand, but it's because of this word that you don't understand it.
Right. And entanglement is not just people. Jada put it on the map for people and having entanglements outside of your marriage, which they ain't got nothing to do with what we're talking about right now. Entanglement are people, they are places, they are things. It's staying in homes that you know or places that no longer serve you. It is
Yeah.
staying in friendships that you know that you have outgrown or you no longer have. Um, you just no longer are the same people, right? You have
Right.
grown, and that's okay. It is for me, like I said, like weed consumption, which is like you were entangled with weed. I was, y'all.
Yes,
And
I
it became
understand.
a way, like if I was bored, if I was distracted, if I was stressed, I was using it. And I was using it so much that I no longer was getting the benefit of it, the medicinal piece of it, because, and as you know, I had to stop. I was like,
Mhm.
okay, that's it, Z, no more. And I stopped for like a month and a half. And then the first time I did it as a celebration. I think it was because of this podcast, because we had finally, I think, had finally, no, it was right before, because remember, that's where I got the idea of the journal entry.
Oh, yes.
And so now that I had taken it out of my life and then placed it back in and was very intentional about the way I used it, I now can get the benefits of it. So I get these inspired thoughts or these what could be random thoughts that prove to be highly successful, like for this podcast, right? The idea of writing in our journal entries to be very vulnerable. So again, it's not just people, it's not just, lovers, it's friends, it's sometimes even can be family. And we have seen
Mhm.
people go no contact, and that's like a thing that was not a thing when we were younger, but it is very true, and it's important for your own mental health that you take care of you first. And by doing that, that means take an inventory of your life. Look at all the places that you feel stuck. Look at the places
Mhm.
that bring you that shame and guilt and say, like, is there something that I'm holding on to that is no longer serving me? Because those are the places that you need to untangle and let go.
Yeah. I think that's a great question that everybody should ask themselves and put down as their journal entry. What am I holding on to in terms of entanglement and in terms of releasing others, people, places, things? And so we say, places, some of us may be stuck in a city or, in our mama's house or
A job.
in a job, right? That we have to move on from. And we know we have to move on for it, but we feel stuck. We feel like, well, what else am I going to do? Where else am I going to go? Um, you can figure that out. I promise you. It's not that hard. Um, but getting quiet is definitely one of the things that is going to help you. But just being able to be aware that you're stuck and then, writing out in your journal. But I also want to, I know it's not always about people, but for me, this word holds dear with people. That's just the word it has um taken over for me. Like I had to learn how to let go of people. And I actually, like I said, I felt like it came easily to me growing up. I could just dump my boyfriends and child, I would be done with you. Like, please don't call me no more. Lose my number, you know. And I was good. And and then I started to lose friends. And that's where it kind of got a little bit harder for me. Um, Boyfriends, that was hard, but not as hard as friends. And then we lose loved ones. I lost my mom, and that was hard as well. And so I've learned that I didn't know how to process it. I could make the decision very easily, but I didn't know how to process it. And then, you know, I didn't know how to surrender eventually, because that's what you actually need to do after you kind of let things go. You've got to surrender. Grief, you can get stuck in grief when you lose a loved one. That was probably one of the biggest lessons about entanglement that I kind of realized when we started talking about this subject. And I was like, I lost my mom in 2018, but did I grieve? Now I can say that I did because I understand what it is. But at that moment, no, I thought, I knew my mother could no longer be here. My mother grew up, she was our warrior, right? She had 6 kids and she was our warrior. And honey, she can take on anybody. Don't mess with my mama because
I know I loved your mama, I respected your mama too, though. I was not gonna
ma'am,
fault her. Yeah.
do not mess with my mama. And so she was
Yeah.
this strong, powerful woman. And then, she got diagnosed with ALS and she lost all mobility. She lost her speech. She lost everything. And so when she was passing away, I knew she no longer should be here because this wasn't the woman that I knew and she wanted to be. This just wasn't her. She she didn't like just sitting in, a wheelchair and not being able to do and say and go, and she didn't like it. And so I knew she no longer needed to be here. So I knew she needed to go, but I wasn't prepared for the loss of her or her presence to no longer be with me, and I didn't know how to grieve. I knew how to stand on the decision that she wasn't going to be here, but I didn't know how to grieve. And for me, you can get stuck in grief if you don't like push through it, if you don't work on it. And you don't have to push through it. It doesn't have to be something where, like you don't know how long it's going to take, right? And I don't fault anybody for being stuck in it, but you have to go through it. It's a journey to push through it. And so entanglement can get you stuck in grief, and you don't know how to properly grieve, and you just don't know how to move forward.
Yeah, no, that's actually a good example of entanglement. And like you said, this was not a loved or not like a lover, right? This is
Right.
your mother, and you saying that like grief was something that you had to untangle yourself from.
Yes. Yes.
And it's not because you didn't love her, not because you didn't miss her, but that you knew that you could not stay stuck and she's no longer here, right?
Yes.
Because then
Yeah.
you are now entanglement is also kind of like an anchor, right? Like it is
Mm,
anchoring you exactly in the place that you maybe don't want to stay in, but you had to allow yourself to have those feelings, right? So
yeah.
you can't like pretend like you don't have them because they will show up in other areas of your life, but you had to process
Correct.
those feelings, but you had to keep moving through them because there's also nothing that you could have done in that moment that was going to change the course of your mother's life, right?
Right.
Like you knew that it was a terminal illness. You knew, and you know that you didn't like seeing your mother like that, right? So, like,
Right.
you had to come to those terms, but you had to continue to come to those terms of what life looks like for you and your children and your siblings without her, right?
Yeah.
And so you had to continue to move through that. So, yeah, that's an excellent example of entanglement that is not just relationship. Of course, I think of mine, and my biggest entanglement was my marriage. You know, Keela, very well how long I wanted to get out of my marriage,
Yes.
but felt stuck in my marriage because I had kids. I did not want to be my children to be a product of divorce. I was a product of divorce, so I was hoping that that wasn't going to be the case for them. I was also a stay-at-home mom for a good portion of that, so that also kept me
Mm,
entangled and took away a lot of the decisions that I could have made in order to, like, untangle myself from this marriage, and then a lot of it was fear. I was entangled in fear of what life looks like after I uncouple, right?
yeah.
What does that mean? Me standing up on my own with my kids, what does that look like I said, it took me years to
Yeah.
get to the decision, and it also took strategic planning for me to decide on how I was going to do it because I had to do it in a way that was going to be best for me and my children and my ex-husband. Like I did not want any of us scarred for life by the way that we chose to uncouple. And so that was a big one for me. Friendships, I think, were marriage obviously was really hard. Friendships felt harder only because you're not in a loving relationship. Nothing really bad happened that would make me go like, I'm done. I can't do this. But what I realized, it was not about my friends and it was completely about me. And I
Mhm.
think I'd said this in a previous episode. I had to care more about me than I did about how they felt about me removing my energy and my time from them. And
Absolutely.
had I not done that, and I do still feel a little bit of guilt for doing this because I also didn't say anything because I did not know that's what I was doing. I did not know that I was basically going into hermit mode so that I could repair and fix me. And in order to do that, I had to remove all outside influences. So that was people, that was like TV, music. I had to change everything and all the content that I exposed myself to so that I could work on recreating the mindset and the life that I wanted. And there were
Right.
just influences, good or bad, that were in my life that are like, aren't part of the new identity that I am choosing for myself.
Yeah.
So I had to let them go.
Letting go is going to open you up for those new desires and those new dreams that you are ushering in, right? But if you keep those people around you, those things around you, those distractions around you, you're going to get stuck in that space and you're not going to allow the next thing to come. I always feel like, we're always trying to level up. We're always trying to get
Mhm.
to the next level in life. It's like a game, right?
Well, it
We're
should be.
always Yeah, I feel like that. But, you know, entanglement is about getting you stuck on that level that you're at and not going to your next. And sometimes, people probably pass away on lower levels than they had aspired to because they couldn't get rid of distractions. They couldn't let people go. They couldn't release other people. Also, another big word with entanglement is forgiveness,
Mm,
right? You have to forgive people also and let them go. You can't just say, okay, I let them go. They're out of my life. But whatever held them there, you've got to forgive them for the bad times. You've also got to honor the good times. And that's one of the things I realized with grief, right? When my mom passed, I was like, I just wanted to cry and I wanted to, sulk and be sad. Um, but my grief looked like honoring my mother, right? And
mhm.
and doing things that, she liked. And my mother had an obsession with, not an obsession, but she liked country music.
Hmm.
And I'm like, "Ma, why are we listening to Randy
You would love
Travis?"
what's happening
And
in country music right now, though, because
well,
we taking
no, she
over.
liked the old school
Oh,
country music,
mhm,
like the
mhm.
Judds, Randy Travis, Reba
Okay.
McEntire. Like she liked those. And so, I made a playlist on my phone for her. And
Mm,
I would just dance around my house to country music. I don't like country music, but my mother did. And so, you know, doing things like that and remembering the good times, those are the ways that you kind of push through the grief and push through things that you need to just kind of overcome. Um, but when it comes to, friends or loved one or lovers, not loved ones, there most of the time, well, for me, I ain't gonna say most of the time, but for me, it was a reason that you ain't gonna move forward with me in my life, right? Like
for
there's
sure.
always like that thing that happens that just can't get you to move on with a relationship with them. Like, you did what? And you
Right,
want me to stay where? No, baby, I won't be able to. I'm gonna need to say
right.
deuces to you and keep it moving. So for me, it had something to do with that, but I had to learn how to forgive them for whatever, happened and forgive myself because I'm never not at fault with anything. But forgiveness is a big key to untying those tangled webs of, entanglement,
Right.
basically.
And forgiveness is something that I think that a lot of people struggle with, but I also think it can keep you entangled, right? Because not even talking about the other person that you were not giving the forgiveness to, they can move on with their life whether you forgive them or not.
Hmm.
You sitting and holding yourself in contempt and not forgiving someone else is only affecting you. right? And so it is keeping you also stuck when you can't
Yeah.
forgive someone. And that was something that I had to really sit with and forgive other people. I had to forgive myself. I had to forgive my mother. I had to forgive
Hmm.
people that I didn't even realize that I was like harboring like certain feelings about, but knew that I needed to move on. And to do that, I had to genuinely forgive them. Now, I'm not saying if someone has harmed you or been like done something to you that you
Yeah.
just feel like they don't even have to know that you have given them forgiveness. This is something that you
Right.
need to do for yourself. And if it's writing it in a journal and over and over and over, I forgive or I release this person and I release myself from the feelings of unforgiveness, right?
Yeah.
And so just so that you are not tangled up in these threads that will keep you anchored exactly where you are. And
Hmm.
if we're talking about manifestation and all of the episodes that have come before this, it all kind of plays in. If you don't untangle those threads, you can't call in anything new. You're going to call in more of the same. More
Correct.
reasons to be shameful, more reason to be to feel guilty, more reasons to find unforgiveness in people, or more reasons to feel like you are the victim, right? So you really have to release and let go.
Yeah.
And honey, today your sweatshirt is saying it all. It says everybody can't go because everybody can't go, y'all. I promise you, if you do want to level
Yeah.
up, and if this is really like the game of life and it's Nintendo and you want to get to the next level, you got to let some stuff go. You
Correct.
got to let it go so that you can move forward.
And we're not saying it won't be hard. Like we have struggled with this and we
I say
sat.
years. It had been
Yes,
years.
we
Yeah.
sat quiet for many, many years, um, and had to make decisions that, we have to stand by today. And even today, it still isn't easy. I absolutely think about my best friend that I had to let go. Like, I think about her all the time. I still love her to death. I still remember the times that we had, you know, but in order for me to get to my next level, I just knew that we were no longer aligned in the respect that, you know, I was dealing with something, she was dealing with something. It was one of those situations. I didn't think I was gonna talk about it in detail, but it was one of those situations where I was going through my worst moments in my whole life and she was going through her best.
Mm.
And I at the end of the day, I always say it was timing for us that separated us and caused our relationship to falter. And we just couldn't get back on the same wavelength, right? When I'm going through my worst moment, I didn't have enough energy in me to rah rah for you, to, applaud you, to be happy for you, because I'm going through my worst. And then you're going through your best moment and you don't want to stoop down to my level of the shame and the guilt and the heartache that I was going through. You don't want to do that. So it was just that's like resistance, right? And so I feel like there was a resistance in our relationship. And most of the time, everybody wants to say, push through, like fight for it. Even like marriages, everybody's like, you better fight for your marriage. Well, guess what? Sometimes I'm done fighting. I don't want to fight for anything. I want everything to be easy. I want everything to flow right. If I'm fighting for it, I'm putting up an extra piece of resistance that's I don't know if it's going to take me down a journey where we get back to the same place that we were, or we just, we continue on with a relationship, but both of us feeling some type of tension or some type of resentment to trying to stay here. Like to me, most of the times that could be the outcome of trying to go against that decision of letting people go.
Well, that's the law of resistance,
Yeah.
perfectly explained.
Yeah.
And the more you resist, the more it persists, right? So that's the same idea of you saying like you don't want to fight, because fighting is fighting against something. So like it is resisting something happening. And the more you resist it, the more it will continue to show up. And so that's why you had to let it go.
Yeah.
And be that as it may, maybe the friendship will come back around. Maybe it won't, but you can't get caught up in those reasons when you decide to let something go,
Right.
because it's going to, again, it's going to keep you in this same energy, in that same, the same wavelength of something that you were trying to move beyond and go beyond. So
Yeah.
you got to learn to let go.
You
Which,
got to
and
surrender.
I know it's so hard, because there are so many things that we are also, we don't realize that we are addicted to. And by that I don't even necessarily mean drugs. I mean that you are addicted
Mm.
to the emotional responses that you get from certain people. Even people that trigger you, you are, and if you go back, you continue to go back, you don't even realize your body is addicted to the response, even if it is a negative one. But once you have done something over and over and over, your body's like looking for that. Okay, wait, we haven't had that dope of that hit of dopamine, or
Hmm.
we haven't had those like butterflies. And so for people like who are anxious, they're like, people who are like afraid, like everything is going right, something must be going wrong. That's their body being addicted to the like the fear and the anxiety that's like, something must be coming around the corner. It can't all be this good.
Correct.
So again, like that surrender, like let life come, let the life will ebb and flow. That is just natural, right? But the more resistance you put into it, I think the scarier and more volatile the waters become when you're trying to like get through it.
Yeah. When you mention addiction, right? Like you had talked about, giving up weed in your journal entry.
Yeah,
I had to let go of alcohol. I have my family has alcoholics in it, right? Like we got
me too.
history of this in it. And many people have histories of drug addiction in their families. And so we kind of grow up and we start out, just drinking and doing a little recreational drugs here and there. But then we start to find ourselves doing it every day. Like,
Mhm,
why am I
mhm.
going
Exactly.
and getting a bottle of wine every single day? Like, and then drinking a whole bottle of wine by myself every single day. Like, I had to stop, point
Well, then
blank period.
also, you realize that you are medicating something, right?
Mhm.
So for me, it was like I had to get high because I just need to, especially when my marriage was like really tough. Like I felt like, oh, I need to get high because I need to
Yeah,
zone out, right? The same thing I think when, when you have to drink to oblivion, it is because there is something that you are medicating. There's something that you're pushing down.
yeah,
There's something that you are not trying to face, right? So those are the things when we say take a look at your life that you have to like, that's the shadow work, y'all. That's the part where you have to dig deep and find out what is it that is keeping me stuck? What is it that I'm trying to avoid? What feelings am I trying to avoid or thoughts? And then if you can sit with those thoughts, why did they make you feel this way? Where did this start? There was a shadow workbook that I did. I'll have to put it in the show notes because I can't remember. I got it off of Amazon, but it was the same idea of it went through your life. Okay, well, where was the first time that you felt shame? When was the
right,
first time that you felt guilty? And it is helping you like work through all of those shadow parts of yourself so that you can untangle yourself and so that you can move forward and not be stuck in decisions or in relationships or at jobs or things that do not fulfill your purpose here, you know? And
yeah.
so, listen, I know we just gave you a whole bunch of stuff, right? But there are a couple little resources that we try to give. And I think this one is especially important. You
Oh,
gave a
sure.
song in your journal, which was it? What was it again?
It was Sam Smith, "Good at Goodbyes." I'm way too good at goodbyes. I
And that's
love
okay.
that
It's
song.
okay to be good at goodbyes.
Oh, I
Oh, yeah,
stand on
girl,
it,
honey,
baby.
we know you ain't no problem with it, right? Okay, so we try to do a book, and this is a book or movie, but it's Eat, Pray, Love. And the reason I
Oh,
chose that one is because in the beginning, if you've ever read it or if you've ever seen it, you know that she had to let go of a relationship. But by doing that, even though she was scared, by doing that, it opened up an entirely new world for her. She had to change her life. She gave up her home. She gave up a marriage. She gave up everything and decided, I'm going out and I'm traveling.
yeah.
But she opened up a whole new world for herself. But then there's also one other for me that when I was going through my marriage and like really wanting to get out, there was a series on Netflix called Maid that I identified with so much. Even though our stories were not the same really by any means, but there were feelings that I had to get in touch with in my own self that I related to this main character. And so I just found it incredibly empowering for
Mhm.
someone who feels like they are stuck in a situation and does not know how to pull themselves out. So those are the ones that I would definitely recommend. This is a heavy episode. We talked about a
Yeah.
lot. And I also hope that people, because we are going to do this after show, that if you have questions or comments, that you would put it down under the video. And when we do this after show, we can come back and we can, answer your questions or talk about something in more detail if you do ask. But we want to thank you for being here. I hope that you can inventory your life, find out where you are tangled, and untangle yourself so that you can move and find your purpose and live your destiny. We love you, and we will see you next week. Until next time, get in here, get in here, get in here.